Welcome back to the Vires and Numeris podcast, a Bryer.io production. That's Bryer.io. This is a special thank you to our sponsors. We start every show off with a thank you to them. Without them, this podcast is not possible. Introducing Zen Sports this week, a new sponsor of the Vires and Numeris podcast. Zen Sports is a peer-to-peer sports betting marketplace where anyone can create and accept sports bets with anyone else in the world without the need for a centralized bookmaker. Deposit funds instantly using cryptocurrencies or fiat. No long wait times or deposit fees. Reduced betting fees compared to traditional bookmakers. The sports utility token is used for placing bets, getting awesome discounts, cashback rewards, bonuses, and other perks. Betting is also available in Bitcoin or USD. This is a decentralized peer-to-peer platform where anyone can create and accept bets with anyone else in the world without the need of a central intermediary or a bookmaker. This is a trustless system that lets the marketplace settle bet results and disputes. Check them out at zensports.com. Vinxcoin is the world's first decentralized fine, French wine, and vineyard-backed security token where anyone can be a fine French wine and vineyard owner from the comfort of their home. Vinxcoin is currently conducting the beginnings of their project over at vinxcoin.com. Check them out and all of the interesting things they're doing over there. Trios.io. What is Trios? Trios is an economy and a system, an ecosystem, a new economy, a fair economy. Trios is the direct reference to the decentralized money that will power a new economy. In the future, the term Trios will become synonymous with cryptocurrency and virtual financial assets, VFAs. Their payment methods, their ecosystem, their general use as both a utility and a store of value. Check them out over at trios.io. Sharing Coins, you found the brick-and-mortar financial institution where you can safely trade dollars for Bitcoin, USD to BTC, over-the-counter, OTC, and person-to-person. They facilitate transactions of all sizes, including high-volume transactions. Their headquarters is located in Waukesha County. More than being just an OTC location, they are here to educate you about Bitcoin, wallets, blockchain, cryptocurrency, security, and platforms. If you're in the Milwaukee area, you can also visit their ATM, their Bitcoin ATM, and more locations are coming soon. Visit sharingcoins.com. Bitcoin SOV, Bitcoin Store of Values, an emerging community-driven product that has a decentralized team the world over. It is a proof of work mineable ERC20 and has a deflationary design with token burns to ensure your value is stored over time. Check out their site at bsov.io. Lucio Paletti is a talented artist who created that masterpiece hanging up on my wall there, the Andy Warhol Buy Bitcoin piece of art there, which I love a lot. Check him out. He has pages of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin art over there. Keychains he's working on right now. Check him out over at luciopaletti.com. That's LucioPoletti.com. Flashcoin is a reinvention of Litecoin built to scale for worldwide commerce and fast enough to handle everyday transactions. The flexible and easy to integrate core code allows exchanges and wallets to add Flash to their platform within hours. With a settlement time of around 5 seconds and consensus within 2 minutes, anyone, anywhere can use Flash mobile wallet as easily as cash or a credit card. I've talked about this before on the podcast. They're a new sponsor, but I've been using Flashcoin for a few years myself. They have a really cool integrated marketplace within their app where you can visit vendors, merchants around the world, and you can see their products and do commerce right over the app. So it's really cool and the future of decentralized commerce. So check them out over at flashcoin.io. And as always, before we get into the episode today, remember, nothing on Bryer.io, written or spoken, should be interpreted as financial advice. Always do your own research. You are the captain of your own financial ship. You control your own sovereignty, and just make sure that you always do your own research and educate yourself, self-invest in education and knowledge. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the show. Let's get into today's episode. And always appreciate you guys listening. All right. Thanks for everybody tuning in today. This is episode number 10 of the Vires and Numeris podcast. Today on the show is my good friend Kurt Wuckert Jr. Him and I have been friends for a couple years. He's the co-founder of Crypto Traders Pro and the Bitcoin Chicago meetup. So it's the Bitcoin Chicago meetup, right?
It was the big blocker. Now it's the BSV Chicago meetup.
Okay, the BSV Chicago meetup. Welcome to the show again, sir.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely. This is the first time you've been on this new show. You and I talked on a previous podcast before, so welcome to the new show. You're rounding out the first 10 episodes here with me, so
nice.
Appreciate you coming on, donating some time today.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so what's going on with you? The world's in turmoil right now, and let's get straight into the craziness, and then we'll get into more the economy. How are you handling COVID-19?
I mean, we're good. I've been like a casual prepper for a pretty long time. I'm not, hyper doomer. I don't have 50,000 rounds of ammunition or anything like that, but
right.
I've always had the ability to sort of deal with my own water and food, and I've always got supply. We grow a big garden. Like, we're a pretty self-sustaining family over here, so we're in a pretty good spot there in a basic sense. And but it's weird when it finally starts to happen. All of a sudden, I'm the guy who's getting all the phone calls from friends like, "Oh my God, is this it? Is this happening?"
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it kind of looks like it. So.
Yeah, it's weird how for years people will, talk about, you're the crazy extremist, or, the words they throw around, the hyperbole, but you're the first person on the speed dial when they need to get a hold of somebody.
No, absolutely. Like, hey, I think Kurt knows how this works. So yeah, it's been interesting. A lot of people coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah, what do you think about is your wife quarantined right now too?
We're both really blessed. We both work from home. She has the opportunity to work in the office, and her boss was a little bit apprehensive about what to do, but she was like, "I'm putting my foot down. I'm not coming in." Right. She's a graphic designer and a freelance filmmaker, so
cool.
She's in a good spot to just kind of hunker down if necessary too. And I work from home, so we've been. I mean, we're this isn't super different for us. The only difference has been like we're not going to the gym, and right. We've not really gone to the grocery store now in like 3 weeks. So yeah, we're digging into the food stores.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's good to be prepared. And obviously, I've tried to I think I've been out and about like 3 times in 3 weeks now. So I'm not doing too bad, but I don't know. Maybe the worst is yet to come for us in America. I'm not sure. We're both Americans, so.
I kind of think so. I've got some contacts in some places, and I think we're just about to hit the sort of the hockey stick curve on
right.
cases, and then with cases come the deaths, and I mean, we've seen what happened in Italy, and we're seeing it in Spain now is overrun, and I think we're gonna see some horror stories, unfortunately.
Yeah, I sort of wonder if I don't know, there's all these theories, but I was really ill at Christmas this year, and it ran into the new year. It was like 2.5, 3 weeks, and I had like the exact symptoms they're talking about. So you just wonder how much the media is playing this up as like being a new thing, whether it's been around or not. I just don't know. But it is interesting to, how the world's reacting. We're living in an era now. We're going to get into talking about the economy here in a minute, but during the last economic crisis, the recession in 2008, social media wasn't as prominent as it is today. So now we're seeing like all of these emotions, like, day to day peaks and valleys. It's just really interesting. Where have you talked to people around the world? What kind of like, feedback have you gotten? Or is everyone pretty worried or?
So, I mean, I got friends in Asia, I've got friends in Europe, South America. Like I've being a Bitcoiner for a long right. time, I kind of know people everywhere. I'm friends with a few pretty serious Bitcoin miners in China. They were talking about it in December and January, like real worried about what was going on. They were sending pictures of, 50,000 people out in public and every single person's got a mask on and that kind of thing. And I went to the CoinGeek conference in London, which it was in the middle of February, and I was a little bit like on the fence whether I should go or not. But I was a little bit like, it's we're fine. And like everybody I hung out with there ended up being sick when we got home. And similar, I didn't get it real bad. It sort of just felt like a cold to me. So I haven't been tested. I have no idea what it was, but some people were really, really, really under the weather.
Right.
One of my buddies is Kevin Pham, who's pretty famous on Twitter for being he was a big BTC maximalist guy, and now he's a BSV dude. But he says he had the coronavirus. He's been okay, but I think there were a handful of people. I mean, like I said, there were Chinese miners there during the peak of it. So they flew out of China to come to London, and we're all kind of hanging out. So, kind of is what it is. But now I'm about 4 weeks out from that and haven't had any further symptoms. So as far as I understand the epidemiology of it, I'm probably in the clear from that exposure point. But
I actually heard something today that had me a little bit concerned. I thought, me thinking that I may have had it, I honestly don't know either. We'd have no idea since we weren't tested. I stayed on the couch for like 2 weeks. This thing put me down. You just have, I heard today that it actually can attack you different ways, so you can get it multiple times. Whether I have no idea, but hopefully you and I are in the clear now. So we got the COVID-19 out of the way. Let's get into what you're up to. What's going on with BSV? You're like my BSV go-to guy.
I mean, we're rocking and rolling. In my opinion, it's the only blockchain that makes any sense. It doesn't have a scale limit in any regard. People will talk about the block size limit. Like, it is the only blockchain with no block size limit. So we don't know what the upper limit is for how many transactions per second are possible. But we've seen blocks at 512 megabytes. That shakes out to, I don't remember now, but like 6,000 or 7,000 transactions a second. But that's the simple one. Like the really cool thing is, like, we've eliminated or raised the child pays for parent, or parent pays for child. I forget now. So how many unconfirmed transactions you can have chained to a single transaction. But the really, really cool thing is the scripting language has been completely restored. It's completely opened up. So there's a full script stack, Turing complete smart contracts, and all kinds of things up on the upper level of the script there. So it's really exciting.
So to explain that more to the person that isn't as technical that might be listening to this podcast, what happened to the script before? Was that is that something that Blockstream came in and limited?
Not Blockstream per se. One of the big ones was actually pay to script hash, which is how on BTC and BCH they do multi-sig wallets. Everything just goes to a P2SH wallet. So that's those are addresses that start with a 3. Mm-hmm. Pay to script hash eliminated a whole bunch of other things. Like, it created conflicts with other scripts that existed in Bitcoin. So they were just shut off. They're like, okay, we're just going to shut all these things off. We're going to use pay to script hash for like everything. But it got rid of all kinds of script that allowed for just simple, like a good example is like a JavaScript program, or even HTML and CSS. Like, so on BSV, you can host a website on BSV. You can serve data from it. You can write to it. And that's obviously impossible with BTC because, first of all, the microtransactions would be priced out. But second of all, the scripts just aren't there. Like, everything, it just fails. It doesn't have the languages there to deal with data microservices.
So, okay, moving on. That was a good explanation. Do you think where do you stand on, I know you're not a Bitcoiner, a BTC guy now. You've claimed that BSV is BTC, or is Bitcoin.
Is Bitcoin, yeah.
Yeah, you got all these acronyms, they come together. So, here's my argument. I'll make a short logical, what I feel is a logical argument, sure. At least, And this isn't, I didn't have you on to get into a big argument or anything. You and I are friends. So this is my only, I would attack this like a logician to say which one is actually Bitcoin. And then I would say maybe you could separate that big blocks could be a better thing for money as a medium of exchange or to build a top of. So I would just say, very simply that, BTC is the first blockchain, or what we know as BTC, or what I call Bitcoin, and that it logically preceded BSV. So A preceded B, so A is the original. So what would you say to that argument? Do you think that is a valid argument?
So my biggest criticism of BTC is that it's no longer an unbroken chain of digital signatures. And the way that Bitcoin is defined, according to the white paper, and this was the understanding of it until SegWit started being discussed in like 2015 and 2016, is that Bitcoin is the longest chain, or it's the longest unbroken chain of digital signatures. And SegWit actually changes that. So it becomes a hash of witness data. And I know it's not mandatory. Everybody say, well, SegWit's an option, and that's fine. Like, I'm not saying that SegWit is inherently bad either, but it does change the definition of Bitcoin and begs us to then say, but it's still Bitcoin because it still has the most hash power and the most proof of work. And it's like, I don't like that definition, because I'm a fundamentalist. When we come to definitions, it's like, we could talk about, transsexuals is another good example. It's like, you know what, you can call yourself a man or a woman, or any of the 60-something non-binary things in between. But from a biological level, if you break it down to the chromosomes, if you needed to have an emergency medical procedure, you're one of those two things. And even hermaphrodites and other things, like, it's about your chromosome. Like, there is a fundamental there that when the chips are really down, you need to define something by what it is. And BSV, it syncs all the way back to the Genesis block, not on Bitcoin Core nodes, but the UTXO set is valid from the very first transaction, and it's an unbroken chain of digital signatures. And then BCH also broke away from that. Like, yes, BSV is technically a software fork of BCH, but BCH stopped being a timestamp server by the introduction of CTOR, which is another way to organize transactions. So I'm very, very rigid with my definition of what is a Bitcoin. And the most fundamental definition is that it is an unbroken chain of digital signatures in consensus with the most honest nodes back to the Genesis block. And the only chain that fits that is BSV.
Okay, so that's a good counter argument, that the chain has been broken by SegWit, is what you're saying, and that since the chain was broken, it's not big. Okay, that's a fair argument. I mean, I'll take that. I'm not going to say you're right, but I think that if you're going to argue it in a court of law, that would be a really good counter argument. I'll give you that. So, what are you? What else? Tell us about the. I don't want to spend a lot of time arguing about maximalism. I will say one thing. I had Vlad Costilla. I know he said I'm butchering his last name wrong. Vlad. Do you know who he is?
I know who he is.
Yeah, he wrote for Bitcoin magazine, and he does the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. Anyway, he was guest of episode 9. I went on his podcast in the Crypto Insider like 2018 during the bear market, and him and I got to know each other a little bit. So, anyways, I had him on last week, and we talked a little bit. And he's he doesn't say he's a maximalist, but by all accounts, he put out a video and stuff of like our conversation, and he made the argument that side chains on Bitcoin is competition to the main. My argument. Well, I guess I should state my argument first. Is that I'm not a maximalist, so I think that by I think competition is good in the space, and just money is good like anything else. So with the competition, the greatest product, or as money, the greatest money product will surface. And the way I look at it is that as a rebuke of BTC, that they have put out these people like what's the head developer, the guy that's Adam Back, right?
Sure.
He's a maximalist, right? Yeah. So he's like the only cypherpunk that I know that maybe, there could be others that are really maximalist. I think that this whole toxic maximalism thing is just like the worst branding for Bitcoin in the history of the world. And him and I got into this, I was trying to make this rational comparison about good, how to get the best economic money, the best product of money. And he was he was trying to explain it that the side chains provide an alternative, that they should be like the altcoins. What do you have? Do you have an opinion of that?
Yeah, I mean, sidechains are a good thing. Like, you'd want to connect a sidechain to the most secure, most proof of work, and and that's great. Problem is BTC can't be that. So I understand somebody that is very, very pro BTC saying that that's a bad thing because it simply can't do it at this point. Like, if you can't develop it using Liquid or Lightning Network, it's not really an option on BTC because it can't handle the throughput. So then the goal shifts to, well, those are bad anyways. We just want BTC to be this thing,
Yeah, well, so, to make sure I stated his case, he was saying that those are like the competition, that we should use those as like the alts.
I mean, I understand that argument, but it's impossible to do. Like, the people talk about all these, like the new thing is L apps, like Lightning apps, and it's like, man, that's just not going to work. Like, Lightning is such a convoluted mess. Like, I understand that some wallets do some things, but without trusting a third-party custodian, it's not really an option. And frankly, it's a separate network from BTC also. So if you want to try to build a sidechain, like an actual BTC sidechain on top of BTC, it just can't work. And anybody that understands how BTC works today understands that. Like, the scripting languages aren't there. In fact, you need transaction malleability to do that in most cases, and SegWit is specifically a piece of software that eliminates transaction malleability. So it's a pie in the sky idea, and frankly, simple tokenization or simple building of sidechains is the simplest, the easiest to deploy, and would be the cheapest running on BSV.
So, my follow up on that is that doesn't Blockstream actually, those are their side chains, right?
Liquid. So yeah, Blockstream created the first Lightning white paper. There's a couple. I think there's 3 actually. Lightning white papers.
What about Liquid? Isn't that their thing too?
Liquid is theirs specifically.
100% theirs, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
Blockstream. It might even be patented.
It's like fake competition. It's like you have fiat currency and digital. Just saying it's digital or something. Digitizing. Right. All these. Yeah. So it's like I just didn't understand that argument. I think it's complete. I don't know. I just wanted to ask you.
No, it's silly. I think as far as like the tokenomics kind of thing goes, like, do we need multiple chains? I would actually argue that I am a Bitcoin maximalist. I consider BSV to be Bitcoin. And the reason for it is, like, we greatly benefit from the efficiency of having a universal source of truth. So if we can do all business together, not just cash business, but consider, to all kinds of data business. If you think of data as money, that it's another twist on, what is the store of value? Is it storing hash power as value? Like, well, no, data has more value than hash power. So we should think of the data as the money. And it makes it unnecessary for everything else. It makes everything exponentially less secure and less valuable by itself. Like, it is much better if me and you can do business with somebody in North Korea or India or anywhere in South America, all on the same chain. We don't have to do conversions and side chains and liquidity pools that make those conversions and blah, blah, blah. It's way simpler to have everyone use the ledger. And then.
Okay. So my follow, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Go ahead. Are you done?
No. That's a good spot to stop.
Yeah. The last time we spoke though, I thought you said that you weren't a maximalist. Maybe you've this was 6 months ago. You and I probably had a podcast in the last 6 months. You kind of like Dash. I mean, do you still like Dash at all or no?
I mean, my opinions have changed. I don't dislike Dash. I like the competition that Dash brings. I think it's generally a good project, for example, but I also think they're too far behind from both a technical development standpoint, and they've got a branding issue. Like, Dash is great if it was the first blockchain and everybody considered, Dash to be a generic blockchain word. That's fine, but Lindy effect does matter, and that's something I agree with BTC people on. But is it going to work at scale? Like, I've not seen anything that says that Dash can function even in the next year or two for a billion people or 2 billion people
Mm-hmm.
doing business together. I see no evidence for that. So it's a cool project. I feel the same way about Monero and even things like EOS and stuff are cool in a lot of ways, but are they going to be that thing that can be the single source of truth for the world? I don't see it.
So what do you think about like them? They've had so much success in like South America, Venezuela, and things like that. There's like 1,000 merchants or something like that. Who knows the exact number, but whatever, something like that.
Sure.
that accept Dash. Do you think that there could be a future in which nation states sort of adopt like they run with Dash, like Venezuela has Dash, somewhere else has Beam or whatever, so something like that.
I mean they could, but I think it's futility. Like we've seen a consolidation of people that use money over the last 50 years. Like more nations use the dollar. We saw Europe go from having 50 currencies to having one. Same thing in the Asian zone. Like there's just more and more people consolidating to the thing that makes the most sense, especially in a global economy. Like I want to be able to do business with somebody in Taiwan, and I don't want to have to exchange, whatever. I don't want to have to exchange Litecoin to EOS to Smart Cash just to do business with somebody. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense from a efficiency standpoint. And I believe that we will move toward the most efficient tool.
So you envision a future now where there will only be one, or you think that there will still be like 20 or 30 that exist?
I think there'll be a couple. I think Monero is a really good example. Like there is always going to be a market for completely anonymous crime money, basically. And like, but I think of it sort of like pirate radio. Like there's people out on boats broadcasting anarchist media over FM waves, but it can't grow. Like you're very limited by the fact that you are specifically staying outside the law and out of the culture there. So you have to be limited to how much you can do. But is there a market for it? Yes. But, will it ever take over? I don't think so. I don't think pirate radio will take over world media.
It's a funny analogy. All right. So let's get off of that topic here. That was interesting. I like the way you put all that stuff. Let's go to current state of affairs in the economy today. You are an Austrian. I'm an Austrian. Let's talk about another Austrian, Peter Schiff, who has made quite the waves on Twitter in the last year, especially. I think he's using Bitcoin as a lightning rod for his Twitter account. Yeah, what are you thinking about Peter Schiff these days and his anti-cryptocurrency take?
I mean, I actually agree with him on his criticisms of BTC specifically.
Yeah, let's approach it like he's talking about crypto in whole, because Peter Schiff doesn't even know how to turn his cell phone off and on. So,
sure. I mean,
I actually watched a show of his yesterday, and I do like what Peter has to say other than crypto. And 35 minutes into the show, he finally realized his headset wasn't on. So it's like, I don't know if I want to get my tech knowledge from Peter Schiff, but
yeah, I mean, he's a brilliant guy. I actually agree with Peter on way more than I disagree with him on.
Right.
But you got to remember too, he's got a massive incentive. He's one of the largest sellers of gold in the world, so naturally he's very bullish on gold. He's one of those toxic bag holders, as far as it goes on stuff like that. But I think he does have a lot of valid criticisms of the cryptocurrency space. Like I'm pretty techie. Like I'm good at what I do. I work in cybersecurity. I understand computers and technology, but at the same time, like I have struggled to spin up a node that works, and I can't get it to sync. And why do I keep getting out of sync? God, this wallet is freaking terrible. Why is it written in this language instead of that? And that's the kind of thing that just absolutely nobody is going to put up with. Like you've got the cypherpunks that think that's awesome. And it is awesome. I like those things, but again, we're talking about pirate radio again, right? If I need to have a Raspberry Pi and I have to have a separate router that puts me behind a Tor wall, like we're already talking about, we're eliminating 95% of everyone for being able to participate. So I think his criticisms are valid, but they're particularly skewed because he's 70 something years old.
He's not quite that old yet.
Is he not?
He's in his early 60s. I think he's in his early 60s. Yeah, sorry, he's not. Peter. His hair isn't holding up so good, I guess. It's I don't know. I like Peter a lot too, and like you said, I agree with probably 80% of what he says. But he's I don't understand. I actually think he is a master marketer. He talked yesterday about he's almost at 200,000 Twitter followers is the number I think he said. So it's like he knows what he's doing when it comes to selling his product or his brand. Yeah. So
but I think the point that matters is if we want Bitcoin to succeed, or if we want any cryptocurrency to succeed, somebody like him should be able to use it safely and efficiently, quickly. It should be as easy or better than, say Venmo or whatever.
Right. But to the same point, like you said, he isn't incentivized to actually understand it.
All right. So, right. Well, he doesn't need it. I'm fairly certain he's a multi-billionaire. So
he's definitely a millionaire many times over. I don't know if he's a billionaire or not, but he's got a lot of money.
Yep.
So moving to what do you think right now about everything going on in the economy? I wanted to lead off with Peter Schiff there as a segue. I mean, everything the Austrians, talk about is like coming true. We're seeing you wouldn't even get away with writing this up in a script. It's, the thing they predict just happens over and over again. What do you think about all of the, the moves being made by the Fed? We're at 0%, nearly 0% interest rates now. They're talking about like QE to infinity.
Right.
What is going to happen? They're dropping helicopter money now, maybe maybe not.
Yeah, we're out in uncharted waters in a big way. If you would have told me 4 weeks ago that we were going to have $2 trillion printed inside of 10 days, potential for Donald Trump pushing out, maybe double the Andrew Yang style UBI payments, talking about student loan interest amnesty. Basically he stole the platform from Bernie Sanders and Andrew Yang inside of a week. So, I think it's kind of funny when I think of all the Trumpkins in my life who have been telling me that I'm missing out on the opportunity to participate in the revolution. Donald Trump is our boy, and I've been cautious. I don't hate Donald Trump either. I think there's some value there, in a utilitarian standpoint also, but he's clearly not a, some giant friend to like the hard libertarian movement. Right. Like he's a giant baseball, but he's Negan's baseball bat, basically. Like, it's good when it helps, and it's real bad when it's not. So
I happen to agree with you there on Trump and the take people have on him. Ron Paul was our guy. He was the libertarian we deserved, but we didn't get. And,
yep. No, I agree completely.
Yeah, the idea that Trump is a libertarian isn't true, but I do think, people, people want to make the argument that it's better to have a businessman run the economy. Maybe not. Yes, overall, yes, that proves that they're intelligent enough to make money and sustain, an economy, but also at the same time that you can't run the government like a business.
Sure, it's interesting. Like if we're going to I'm in a weird spot because, again, I'm a fundamentalist. So for me, it's like, well, this is fundamentally immoral to take people's money through inflation.
Right.
However, we have a giant interconnected system that was built on the predicate of inflation solving our problems. Mm-hmm. So when that's the case, it's like, it's like you're playing a game of baseball and you hate the rules, and it's like, well, you kind of can't change the game until we finish this game. And so it's like, what happens if we do nothing? And we just don't know. So I wouldn't want to be the president in this situation either, because it's like, does he destroy the entire world economy? And which decision destroys the entire world economy? And when you're in uncharted waters, it's not a fun place to be either. So
it's almost like coming in, you brought up the baseball analogy. It's almost like coming in as a relief pitcher, and you're actually down. You're the guy that comes in when the team is down. Yeah, 4 or 5 runs already in the 8th inning, and you have very little chance to save the day, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So what do you think about alternatives to crypto right now? Let's talk about whether Peter Schiff has any valid claim that, us millennials, you and I are the same age, should be putting our money into precious metals.
I mean, I like precious metals. I don't think they're a bad investment per se. I mean, they've certainly underperformed Bitcoin over the last decade, but it doesn't mean that there's not 5,000 years of history where they have never gone to zero and they're still a functional asset in any situation. So I don't know. It's complicated. I was actually having a discussion with a buddy who works in supply chain planning, and he's a hedge fund manager as well. And he was saying, like, man, we have an opportunity here to really change some lives. If people can take, let's say Trump starts sending out $1,000 or $2,000 checks, like, what should we do with those things? And it's like, well, from an economic standpoint, like, pay down any high interest debt. And then secondarily, like, maybe even take a look at buying like some good stocks. Like, I think we're going to have an era of nationalism. People are super pissed off about globalism and the fact that our supply chains can be cut off this hard by China and all of that. I think people are finally starting to see, like, oh shit, I wish we made our own masks in this damn country, that kind of thing. So I think investing in that kind of thing would be wise, at least in the midterm, or guys our age, we're 30 something years old,
right?
If we're talking about holding on to something for 30 years, it might be a good idea to buy some American manufacturing stock, maybe get into some commodities and raw materials that can feed into that. And then other things like Amazon. Like, I think Amazon is probably going to have a big uptick on this because they're going to say, like, hey, you know what? We've been investing in drone technology and having robots pick the stuff out of the warehouse and stuff. Like, we could get you stuff that hasn't been touched by human hands in 2 months. And so there's no chance of contamination because a robot picked it, packed it, delivered it, and all of that, So, like, I mean, that's a big opportunity there to maybe use that, your Trump bucks to buy some good stocks. And again, I'm assuming you've got your own, like, Bitcoin exposure and the rest of your portfolio and stuff is also in a place that's balanced. But
yeah, I actually forgot. I like to lead off the show now with where we're at, where this is March 19th, 2020 for posterity. The Bitcoin market is actually, the whole crypto market's pumping today. Bitcoin was, I think, hit 6,400. It was up almost 20% or was 20%. And BSV, I'm talking BTC, BSV was up almost 40% at 39% when we got on here. What was it, 140? Am I right? Or
looks like it bounced off of $160.
160, so, that's right. It was 159, I think, before we got on here.
So top to bottom, I think the lowest price we got on BSV in the last 2 weeks was like $90. So it's see, 200% move bottom to top.
This is a good segue into actually it wasn't on the podcast. You and I just go back and forth on Twitter sometimes talking.
Yeah.
What do you think now? I still maintain we're in a bull market for the next 20 months or till 2022 area. Are we in a bull market? What are your opinions?
I thought we were. Right. So, I think it really depends on what happens in the real economy. Like, I don't see Bitcoin as an asymmetric investment during the downtimes. I mean, we've only ever seen Bitcoin exist in a raging bull market. So for anybody to say, like, if the world collapses, you want to have your Bitcoin, I mean, it's theory. I mean, that's fine, but there's no evidence for it. And in fact, we have evidence to the contrary, that Bitcoin underperformed a lot of things on the downside. So
what would change your mind? Because we're talking about 20-40% up today, depending on your asset in the crypto market. What if we bounced and we got we got back to $8,000 Bitcoin or whatever? Would that change your mind here in the next few weeks or months? While the stock market continues to slide.
If the stock market continues to go down and Bitcoin continues to climb, then I would reassess the position. But I don't think we're in a position to say that it's better than anything. And I'm actually super bearish on the halvening. I think the halvening is a really bad meme, personally. So here's the thing: we only have 2 points of data. There's been two halvenings.
But they've both been super bullish after. You can't deny that.
They have been, but
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit circumstantial, and here's why. Like going from, like, let's assume that miners sell every bit of Bitcoin that they mine every time they get the block reward. It's a really small. It's less than 1/10 of a percentage point of the total daily volume of traded Bitcoin. So we're talking about an infinitesimally small difference that the halvening creates in the available supply that's being liquidated. And I think the concept is like, oh, there's going to be so much less Bitcoin for miners to sell, and therefore the price will pump because there's less supply, but perhaps increasing demand. While I agree that increasing demand will make the price go up, I think on the supply side, I think the supply side is so painfully small that I think it's an irrelevant metric. So I think if it pumps, it's the meme. It's people think that it's supposed to pump, but the supply and demand balance is just, it's completely irrational. There's like $40 billion in Bitcoin traded, on average in the last few months on a daily basis. Well, there's not $40 billion worth of Bitcoin being mined. It's actually just a few million. It's like $14 million or something like that. So it's a pretty small number, 14 million out of 40 billion. And then you cut that down to 7 million. Like like I said, it's less than 1/10 of a percent. So,
but sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
If they're, I think the mining cost is somewhere around like 13K, 13,500 per Bitcoin. After the halving or the halvening, whatever you want to call it. It's the block reward halves the halvening event, right? So I think the counter argument is that the miners will hold on to every one that they can get a hold of, every unit, and that will drive price with the stock to flow. But it's just another argument.
I think the thing that people aren't thinking about is if it costs $13,000 to mine a Bitcoin, then they're already underwater by about 50%.
Right.
And the halvening halves their revenue again. Right
now.
Correct.
We're taking which is also a very bullish case that we're going to see upward price movement, right? I mean,
I disagree. Okay. So I don't like stock to flow it's a theory. It's an economic theory about what how commodities behave based on the available supply that is in store versus the amount of supply that is just floating around in the economy. And I don't like the monetary theory behind it to begin with. So when it gets applied to Bitcoin, I'm immediately like, I don't accept that that's a valid theory beforehand. And then when you apply it to Bitcoin, which is an inherently less needed asset to the economy than, say, oil or whatever, I don't love it. I don't love the whole train of thought, frankly. So
it's fun to talk about. So where do you what else are you interested in? If you're talking about BSV, you're not really in anything else. Let me ask you something that I think is interesting. Have you looked into Chainlink at all?
I know of it. Yeah, I mean, I've looked into it. So I'm a fundamental analyst full time. So I keep up on all of the hot stuff. I know Chainlink has been probably the best investment in the last year across the cryptocurrency space. So I've looked into it. I think its existence is predicated on the idea of we have 1,000 blockchains and they all need to communicate with each other, and these are all oracle points and blah 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 blah. And I think it's a problem that only exists in theory, because I believe we should have a single chain that does everything. So Chainlink solves a problem that doesn't need to exist, in my opinion. But if it does exist, I think it's a good project, assuming we have all these chains that need to talk.
What do you think about it? See, this is something I thought it was only blockchain to blockchain originally, all interoperability with blockchains, but they're also trying to communicate and tie together traditional databases with the blockchains. So do you think that raises their utility?
Again, in theory, yes, but I know, for example, there's like an A+ SAP vendor that's building on BSV right now because he doesn't want to have to deal with multiple steps. So like, hey, we're going to set up an Oracle that connects us directly to our SAP system for supply chain management. The big one is in drugs. So it's a company called EHR. It's Electronic Healthcare Records is the company. They they do most of the healthcare records in the West, like the entire Western hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking at BSV for the scalability because they want to be able to track every single pill to try to knock down the narcotics problem. And then another one is they're calling it seafood chain. It'll be a side chain project on BSV. And it's the exact same thing, but with tracking fish, because Norwegian fish is more valuable, but it gets X amount more valuable if you can prove the temperature that it was caught at and that it was stored at and that all these different things, and say, hey, this is actually a completely verified system versus your questionable salmon over here. And so
you think that adding chain link is like the link in between, for lack of a better word, is a point of failure basically.
Yeah, I see it as an unnecessary middleman. It's smart. Like I've looked into it. Like it assumes we need, again, Ethereum and various other things doing all kinds of stuff, but it's not. I just don't see a reason for it.
Yeah, I'm really interested in it right now. I just started researching it like in the last couple months, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I respect your opinion on it. So I can't believe how fast that 40 minutes went. I really appreciate you coming on today. I told my dad you were coming on the show today. My dad watched our last episode. He's like, that Kurt Wuckert guy, he's a pretty nice guy.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I'll have to have him watch this one. Do you have anything else you want to add today while you're on here? I plan on having you on every few months if you want to come on, because you're fun.
I'm happy to come anytime, man.
Yeah. You can keep me updated with what's going on. Yeah. Your plugs, your site or whatever you want to,
For sure.
Twitter handle.
Honestly, like, I mean, you can find me at cryptotraderspro.com. You can find me at Kurt Wuckert JR on Twitter and most other places. I appreciate anybody who reads. I do a little bit of freelance writing for CoinGeek Media, specifically writing about like Bitcoin theory from a big blocker's perspective. Podcast appearances, et cetera, et cetera. But I think in this time, with everything going on, this global pandemic, I want to remind people, like, take care of each other, like build a good community, people you can trust,
right.
People that have your back, even when the chips are really, really down. This is an opportunity to really change your life. Like I said before, buy stock in the gutters, pay off bad debts, like put yourself in a position where you can survive in your home for 60 to 90 days without having to leave. Like, there should be a wake up call. But be good to each other. Be generous when you have the opportunity to.
That's a good message to end on. I appreciate you coming on the show today, sir, and I'll talk to you again shortly.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me.